Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad that you are joining me for this conversation today. Today, we're going to talk about how an immersive virtual reality experience can improve communication, social, and even police interaction skills in neurodivergent children, adolescents, and adults. Today, I'm speaking with Vijay Ravindran. Inspired by his experience as an autism father and his child's first experience with virtual reality, Vijay founded Floreo. I can't wait to have this conversation. Let's dig in.
Millions of kids struggle with learning, processing, and social emotional difficulties. These challenges interfere with their ability to reach their full potential. Dr. Karen Wilson is here to help. Her extensive background in pediatric neuropsychology and higher education have prepared her for this unique mission. Listen as she delivers content to inform, educate, and empower parents and educators. This will enable you to identify challenges that kids face and get them on the road to achieving their full potential. This is Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus.
Welcome, Vijay.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. Like I was saying to you before we hit record, we met during a founders event and we were both presenting the work we do with our companies, and what you are doing with Floreo really stood out to me. And I knew that I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about what you have created and the impact that it's having on diverse learners. And so thank you so much for agreeing to be here. I know that you're busy doing great work in the world. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Now, before we talk about Floreo, which uses virtual reality to support neurodivergent individuals, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what inspired you to develop this particular intervention.
Absolutely. The inspiration comes from, my role as a neurodiverse father. My son is on the autism spectrum, and his experiences during childhood have really shaped my connection to the community and an understanding of what type of needs are there through my role of being a parent. The specific inspiration really came from the first encounter with virtual reality that my child had and how positive it was. It seemed to unlock new potential that I hadn't seen, and really, was an epiphany moment that, hey, virtual reality could be a next generation medium for therapy and training for neurodiverse learners.
Right. And it seems like that type of therapy, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, is so accessible.
Absolutely. I think what's powerful about any digital technology, but virtual reality is special because it creates a fully immersive, repeatable practice environment. And I think for those of us who are familiar with the challenges facing neurodiverse learners, oftentimes they just need a little bit more time to practice. And so virtual reality has always felt like this opportunity. And what makes it so accessible is that it can be used as a medium to recreate an enormous number of situations that are either impossible to recreate in the home, school, or clinical environment, or if it was possible to recreate, is exorbitantly expensive and logistically impossible to conceive.
Right. Right. And I think it seems too that, a VR approach also makes therapy more engaging. And what you're really doing is you're giving them, like you said, opportunities to practice and to keep on practicing very important skills. And it seems that they can also work at their own pace.
That's right. So the animations that we use are tailored to being developmentally appropriate. And it gives us the opportunity to create engaging environments for the neurodiverse learners that can hold their attention. I think we've all seen how, or at least I've seen firsthand, how therapy can be quite grinding and overwhelming and fatiguing for learners. And so one of the great opportunities we have is to make an aspect of those challenges actually more fun and engaging, something they want to do. I think one of the greatest compliments we got early on when we were deploying Floreo in schools and clinics was we've had kids put Floreo on their Santa Claus list. And I feel like if we can kind of keep doing that, where we have something that is clinically and research-wise supported to being beneficial, but also is fun enough that a kid can see it as something they want to do, that we're hitting the right sweet spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for listeners who are kind of hearing us talk about virtual reality and Floreo and neurodivergent learners, can you talk about what Floreo looks like? Like, what exactly is it? What can a child who's going through this immersive experience look like? What do those environments look like?
Yeah, and perhaps many of your listeners have never used virtual reality before. So I'll take a step back and just describe virtual reality first in simple terms, and then talk about Floreo specifically. So virtual reality is a technology or capability that allows someone wearing a headset with screens built into those headsets to feel a sense of presence in a different place. And virtual reality can be delivered either using live action or traditional video, but it surrounds you, and as you move your head position or your entire body, that view and display updates in real time to give you a sense that you are in that other place. Much of virtual reality is done through 3D animation. That's how most games are created. And the Floreo system is predominantly 3D animated environments. And so the content in Floreo, so to speak, is clinically designed and developed to help with skill building. So we look at the types of skills neurodiverse learners need, which has a really wide range based on developmental level and challenges they might face. So it can be as basic as understanding a pointing action, or learning some basic abilities to imitate and use gestures, kind of bread and butter for early intervention. And when you think of a traditional therapy, it can include social situations in schools where a kid your age, and one of the benefits of VR is that we can actually have a peer avatar interact with the child that is actually in the same age range. So when you think of traditional therapy being predominantly adult to child, we have an opportunity to actually have a child-to-child interaction, and that child can use childlike language. They can have childlike reactions. So we have a lot of content around learning conversation, from basic greetings to being able to talk about subjects they're interested in, to be able to listen and join a conversation happening amongst multiple peer kids, and that all the way to in the classroom environment, learning how to raise your hand, how to answer a question, how to be patient if someone else is called on. So you can imagine a lot of the different challenges. But we basically recreate those scenes in engaging animated virtual reality. The learner is able to experience those lessons, and we have a coaching application that allows a supervising adult, which could be a special educator, a therapist, or a parent, be able to puppeteer some of the characters so that they create social back and forth with the individual learner. In other cases, they can always see what the learner is seeing, so they're able to provide live coaching as they're going through the experience, and they're able to record key data that can then be used to understanding if the child is ready for the next set of lessons that might be more complicated. And so the Floreo system is really that coaching application combined with a growing catalog of virtual reality experiences built on different skills. And today we have over 200 lessons, so we have a wide array of areas we teach skills. I named a few earlier, but just to give you a sample, safety is a really big area of concern. So how to cross the street safely. One of the biggest fear factors in the community when I first started demonstrating the product in community events was law enforcement encounters were a huge concern. And so we actually have lessons and have worked closely with Children's Hospital of Philadelphia on research on the development of lessons to be able to safely handle a police encounter and maintain your composure. We've recently concluded a partnership with the Tennessee Department of IDD, and we have lessons around job skills like teamwork and time management. So it's really a wide range from things that are appropriate for very young learners, very basic foundational skills, to sophisticated areas like shopping at the grocery store or learning about time management and teamwork because you're getting ready to go out into interviewing for a job.
So you were targeting so many different skills because initially when you were talking, I was thinking about how important this platform would be for developing communication skills. And now I'm hearing also the safety factor and just the preparation for transitioning into the adult world for older individuals. So it seems like you can work on a number of different skills. And at the same time, you're getting guidance, you're getting instructions from your coach, whether that be a special education teacher, like you said, a parent or a therapist during this immersive experience. So you're getting feedback in real time.
That's correct. And so we have this growing catalog. The catalog has been 100% driven by customers. So we started with a set of early intervention lessons, such as the pointing example I gave, and then we have been led by the nose by families and teachers and therapists on where the need is and what they think is valuable to teach that maybe they're not able to teach as well right now. That has led to the 200 lessons and growing in the catalog. And so we have always believed that it's important to pair the virtual reality experience with as someone who could play that coaching role. And part of what's made the system grow during the pandemic, especially, is that coaching application can run as a remote learning or telehealth application. And so we enable clinics, and this is to a lesser extent now schools. During the pandemic, it was more popular, but we allow a family to have the virtual reality headset in the home, the neurodiverse learner to put the headset on, a caregiver to set up video conferencing with a professional who might be remotely somewhere else, and deliver a much higher quality of telehealth therapy than simply using video conferencing.
And that's really incredible. Again, that I'm just keep thinking about how accessible that is to individuals, because we've been hearing about how hard it is for individuals to get into to see a therapist, particularly when there's logistic issues with going in person, and to have, this intervention that is accessible and you can work it into a telehealth format is so valuable to so many families.
Absolutely. And then coupling that with a system that is easy enough for a parent to use in the home as a supplement so that they can start making decisions on what for their lifestyle, for their job situation, how they can blend the professional care that might be being delivered in clinic with things they can do in the home. And I think speaking of access, I think one of the early stories that really struck me was as the pandemic hit, we have Medicaid waiver approvals in several states. So there are access paths where families can get if they're on a waiver program. And we encourage anyone listening who's on a waiver to reach out to us, as these waiver approvals are predominantly parent driven. Parents in states have gotten us waiver approved by working with their service coordinators once they realize that the product can be covered. But we had a grandparent reach out wanting Floreo to help with their child because both parents had died due to COVID. And so the child had gone into the grandparents' care. This is before the vaccine was available. So you can imagine, as someone who was older, that there was extreme fear in going out into the community because of COVID. And this child still needed, services. And so the possibility of VR being a enabler of greater access to services, and also allowing, the reality in therapy services today that there's massive staffing shortages, and so even if you live close to a clinic and you're willing to drive multiple times a week to get care, there's not necessarily availability. There's a high turnover rate, and so the opportunity to introduce remote care is really powerful.
Yes. And, again, when you were initially talking, I'm thinking about this being so helpful and beneficial for skill development for autistic individuals. But then when I hear you talking about these lessons about raising your hand, I'm thinking about impulse control, and I can see how that would be beneficial to kids, adults, individuals with ADHD. So is Floreo for a variety of neurodiverse presentations? And who benefits most from Floreo?
Yeah, it's a great question. The origins of Floreo, started with autism, but as you are pointing out correctly, that neurodiversity is broader than simply autism, and the challenges facing neurodiverse learners are highly overlapping. Someone might have an ADHD or anxiety diagnosis and either also have an autism diagnosis or have some of the same overlapping needs when it comes to executive function or emotional regulation. And so we have, over the last couple of years, been organizing our lesson library to identify the areas that can be applicable to someone with an ADHD diagnosis, with anxiety, and especially with our school-based customers who are doing special education-oriented delivery. We're seeing some really exciting usage in that space. Looking forward, we have a great partnership right now with the National Human Genome Research Institute, which is part of NIH, where we've co-developed brand new ADHD interventions as well. Those are entering the research phase, so they're not available yet to customers because we're working through the research. But when we think of the power of virtual reality and where it can extend into, we absolutely have in our minds ADHD, pediatric anxiety, job training for neurodiversity as areas that are all in play.
Yes, and I love that you mentioned the overlap between ADHD, anxiety, autism. And I can see how, if you think about some of these immersive experiences that you've described, a classroom setting, an airport, a cafeteria, where someone with anxiety entering those real life situations can be very anxiety provoking. And it seems that doing it in like this virtual reality environment would make it more manageable, particularly if a parent is right there or you're getting guidance as you're going through that experience.
Yeah, I think one simple way to think about it for listeners is that the scene that you need to practice is the same. The coaching you might need to receive could be different because of the challenges of the specific condition you might have and the way that you process information as a neurodiverse learner. And so what Floreo enables is that repeatable practice environment. The instruction you might give to help coach someone to be successful can vary. And, and that's happening today where we have lots of different types of professionals and parents using Floreo, and the way that a behavioral therapist might coach in a given lesson can be very different than, say, a speech therapist or an occupational therapist. But they're all getting benefit because virtual reality is helping create that repeatable practice environment that's immersive.
Right. And that kind of reminds me of what you were saying before about the telehealth offering of Floreo. But, a lot of parents I can hear listening is saying, is this something I can use at home, or is it something that my child can use during a therapy session? It sounds like it's both.
Absolutely. It's yes and yes. As a small startup, we've had to focus our resources. So we've been predominantly focused on licensing to healthcare providers in the therapy space. And through a partnership we have with Meta, we also are working with special educators and able to donate virtual reality headsets to school districts that are licensing right now. So those have been the primary focuses of the team. But the system is simple enough to use for parents. We do have a growing cohort of parents who have found us. That includes the waiver approvals we have right now in Wisconsin, New York, and Tennessee. And like I said, we have parents raising their hands who are on other Medicaid programs in other states, reaching out to us right now and then helping us with the approval process, because often the best way to get approval quickly in a state is to have a parent say, hey, I'd like to use this. And so that's our approach. It's very organic, and it's customer driven in how we think about the best way to serve the community.
Right. And, your product is evidence-based, and it seems that it is a digital therapeutic product. And it seems like the next step would be to make sure that it's covered by insurance, so more families would have access to it.
Absolutely. So, we've invested since the beginning of the company in research. We've been published, and folks who are interested can go to floreovr.com/research to see some of the published papers up to date, including our work with Children's Hospital Philadelphia through an NIH Fast Track grant. We have our sights set on becoming an FDA-approved medical device as well. So we're in the middle of research with that as a goal. And as part of getting reimbursement to work, we've taken what we believe to be a trailblazing step for virtual reality, which is that we presented last summer and got approved with the American Medical Association and the first CPT-3 code for healthcare providers to use VR in behavioral therapy. So that code, which is 0770T, is live as of January. And we're now working with healthcare providers that are our current customers to learn how they can leverage that code in their practice. It's designed to be a practice expense code that can go alongside a number of therapy codes that range from speech therapy, psychotherapy, and applied behavioral analysis style therapy.
That's wonderful. That's really amazing. I think, again, it just increases the reach, for therapists to get this covered and to have more therapists utilizing Floreo in their therapy sessions. Vijay, you and your team have created an incredible evidence-based learning experience that's really designed to create and meet the unique needs of individuals who learn and think differently. Those are the kids that we care deeply about, the individuals, the adults we care about. If parents, clinicians, or even schools in our community want to learn more about Floreo, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, there's great information on the Floreo website, Floreo, FLOREO.com. And we have a team ready to get in touch with all of the above as far as teachers, therapists, and parents. We have very affordable pricing that can start as low as $50 a month for a single child. And like I said, there are, depending on the different states you live in and programs you're on, potentially reimbursement opportunities available. And then for clinics and schools, we have additional programs to help them get onboarded, including in the case of public schools. We have a generous donation of headsets from Meta that help take away the hardware expense that otherwise would need to be incurred.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be sure to put links to the Floreo website in the show notes, along with the great articles that have been published on Floreo. I'm thinking about what you had said before about safety And there's this article on how virtual reality can improve police interaction skills in adolescents and adults. And I think it's a really great read for so many of our listeners, particularly who have young people who are transitioning to adulthood, who are adolescents. You're doing incredible work, and I can't thank you enough for being here today and sharing this information with our listeners.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus. For more resources, visit us online at childnexus.com.